Back in the potager for the morning, and I'm going to do a smaller work, but this time poppies are still out, as you see. These big European bumblebees and ordinary bumblebees having a go. We have a bit of sunshine this morning, so I want to show you a technique that was inspired by Monet. Oh yes, strawberry in my garden. Sure it'll be delicious. Absolutely lovely. Now, about 15-20 years ago I went to see the Monet exhibition in the Tate Gallery in London. I'd mentioned this in some of my earlier textual films. I was just talking to a local expert on Monet who's giving talks at the moment, and I think she thinks I'm mad, but when I look closely at some of, not all of, Monet's work, I could swear that he used filler or some sort of build-up underneath with texture first before doing the actual painting. It looked to me, and it works for me, I've done it, and I'm going to show you now this technique so you can enjoy it as well. But he used filler and then put a priming of yellow ochre on and then used oil paint at the end. And I think he put the filler on with the actual brushstroke, so he drew it out, worked it out, built up all the marks with the texture, it appeared, then put yellow ochre then put a yellow ochre ground on. I've used dark grounds in the past and taken this much further. I've taken it into using all sorts of textures and seeds and grains and polystyrene and so on with my resin works. So I'll show you one that I did earlier on now with just this textural work of Rosie, which was in my gardens in Lincolnshire, this one. Now here's some that I did with much bigger textures, with tissue paper, with filler, with grain and peas and all sorts of things and rice. And then these were covered with resin to give them a really high gloss and give them a ceramic feel. Now what we're going to do today is a bit simpler, using a smaller one here of these flowers. Somewhere, I'm not sure quite where I'm going to be yet. The sun's up and I wasn't expecting it today, that's nice. I'm going to make the filler and I'm going to put it in the same way with the brushes as I would paint with the paint onto the board. I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to prime it. So I've got to do all of this in one morning, in one day, but the light changes too much. And then I'm going to use acrylics over it. And then I may well try and use some oils to show you how oils go over acrylics and give that vibrance and brilliance at the end. So quite a big lesson for you here in how this can work. Well, what composition are we going to use? Let's take a look at these flowers now. The thing is, it changes so much day by day as well. I'm wondering about something like this, taking in these poppies here, and I need to get them to fill the board as much as possible. I would like to get the top of this hollyhock in, so I'll change the composition a bit to do it and move things around a bit. Composition here then. Not convinced the sun's going to stay out, but we'll see how far we can get. Onto my bit of primed MDF here. I've got a frame ready for this, so you'll see the project right the way through from start to finish. Okay, aujourd'hui nous avons une démonstration de texture. Texture avec acrylique et huile aussi. Le matériel que j'utilise c'est MDF, aussi une couche de emulsion blanche, après le plâtre avec pour l'intérieur, plâtre pour le mur avec le colle blanc PVA. C'est une bonne technique. Le final est similaire de l'impressionnisme, similaire de le tableau de Monet. Et j'espère vous connaissez mon français. Je parle en français et anglais aujourd'hui. Okay, I've got my basics set up, my brushes and so on there. I'll show you the mix I'm going to do in a minute, but first I've got to make a drawing, a composition. And I'll use my fingers like this just to make a frame to find what I want. I'm going to have to move things around to get the composition as I would like it in this board, because that's what matters. It's not copying what's there, it's having a painting at the end that works in the frame, because nobody's going to know this garden apart from having seen this film. Right, so what are we going to do? So what I've got here now, then I've got this hollyhock coming up here, which is the one here. Then I brought the poppy and the whole hollyhock down slightly so it fits within here. I brought the pink poppies and so on around here, that's these ones here, I brought them around here. I brought the red poppies into here, right down to here. We even got little white flowers and pink flowers up here, we've got little white flowers down here bordering it. So we've actually used that and crushed it in to the picture like this. And I've got the basic shapes there, so I'm going to get now a painting knife as well and use my brushes and make the mixture for you. Right, for this job, what I'm going to need is some ordinary household interior filler, such as polyfiller. This is a fine one, I want a fine one for this job. And I will need some PVA glue, polyvinyl acetate, some ordinary white woodworking glue. You can use the washable variety if you want the children's variety, but the better the quality, the better it's going to be for you. Don't need too much of it. So, how much am I going to need for a painting that size? Well, let's have a look. I'm using an old dog bowl here to mix it in. It's quite useful then. So I'll take a couple of handfuls of it. I just need to work out how much I need by looking. I reckon for a board that size, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. I can always throw it away at the end, so it's better to make a little bit more than too little. It doesn't want to be too heavy and too thick, so that's about enough there, I reckon. Now, into that, some PVA glue. Again, this is to bind it. Now, the filler itself has binder in it and will work. But I'm going to put about yay much, a couple of handfuls of PVA glue in just to bind it and make it a bit more plastic. And it'll enable it to stay on the board better. And then, get some more of that out. The glue will already wet it a bit, so we don't want too much water in. Make sure you don't put too much water in. Gradually add cold water, a little bit going nice and slow. Just put a little bit in, mix it with your fingers. Already the glue is making it very creamy. It wants to be a really sort of heavy cream, almost into a paste. So I'm hardly needing any water there at all. It's actually mixing very well. So mix it up really well with your fingers. You can't use anything else. You can't use a knife for this. You've got to use fingers to make sure it's all mixed, no powder left at all. So it'll be a really lovely even mix. You can see there now the sort of creamy feeling I'm getting from that. You see it going through my hands there, and that will go on with a brush or with a knife. I'm going to paint that on literally as I would the oil paint or the acrylic in texture with both the painting knives and the brushes. So let's go get that going. Now here's my painting knives then, various sizes. And a fork as well, which is very handy for doing textures such as the stems. Now I could just lather the whole thing on and then work up over it, but I want to build up the larger areas first. So let's have a look at what blades I've got here. That one's one of my favourites, that's a nice size. So we'll start taking this straight away now, and it's going to be about half an hour with this normally, but it's already starting to dry, I can feel it. So we'll whack in one of these poppies up here. Yes, I'm going to have to work very quickly. It's already starting to dry on me, and we want to get it to stick, so I'm going to just work out where things are first. These nice big poppies here like this, and you can see already you can build the texture up almost immediately, but I must get this onto the board and get it to dry. And how we're going to do this, we've got all these little flowers coming up here in texture. Make sure it sticks to your board, make sure you really work it on. And behind here I'm just going to use a larger knife just to get texture onto this, just get the texture onto the surface so I can work it up. So back here I just want to get the board covered as I would with paint, and then I can work the texture up quickly. So let's really get this built up here, a bit smoother here first of all. I can just see my drawing through. It's not transparent by any means, but you can just see what you're doing. Working up this very quickly. Now if I push with the blade onto this smooth filler that I've just done and then come off, I get stuck like that. So if I push and pull off, and as I say, if Monet worked like this on his big paintings, he could very rapidly produce, if he did this. I'm not saying he did, but by what I've seen, he could well have done. And it gives a wonderful effect, like Monet. You'll see as I go on. Right, now we've got the stem of the hollyhock coming up here, and I'm going to use the knife to build that stem up and leave the stem behind here right into that leaf there. And I'm going to bring that stem around by leaving the hollyhock coming up here. And you can see I've built up the hollyhock now to actually stand out like a Roman relief here. I can take little bits of filler and put them on and drag them to be in the same texture as the hollyhock. There's bits of leaf coming out here. There's a big leaf here that I want to get on. But again, I'd like to get this filler on before it dries, so I'm just putting those bigger leaves in at the moment just to show where they are. It comes down into these leaves in the background, and I've got a lot of smooth stuff down here, but I've got to texture that in a moment. Then there's that big flower there. There's these lovely pink poppies here, great big ones that I want to get on. Just get the filler on while I can, make it stick. Down here I can use different shaped knives and brushes in a minute and I can even use water on the brushes to make things smoother if I want as well. So it's a wonderful technique to use. Now remember, you can use with the PVA glue, you can use other materials too. Nothing to stop you from using rice or broken polystyrene or grain or split peas. It's a very versatile technique, and it doesn't half save some money. I mean, you go buying that stuff from the shops, the fillers and the mediums from the shops, and they're going to cost you an arm and a leg. And this is a matter of a few bob from the hardware shop. Ordinary polyfiller, ordinary household interior, not exterior, interior filler. The exterior one would be much rougher. I mean, there's nothing to say you can't use that at all, but it's much, much rougher, and you want a smoother surface for this, I think, at the moment. Right, let's get all of this covered. I've got so much to do before this stuff dries off, and I really want to get these. I know I'm going to lose a bit on the ground in a minute, I'm bound to. I want to get this surface basically covered so that I can work textures onto it. Even if it does dry, I can then come back and put more texture on afterwards, right up into here, and I can then use my comb and my other spatulas for maintenant avec un couteau, je peinture, the pinceau après. The brush afterwards, the knife at first. Let's put another lovely poppy just coming into the corner here. Big. Get it covered, get this stuff on as fast as I can. There's more textures going on, more leaves up here. That hollyhock is coming down behind here. I've got to get that stem correct. We've got the stem above, we've got to get it down here now. And then the leaves that come across it like this. The leaf comes across into there. You see how Monet could have done this. He wouldn't have used a household filler. He would have made his own from plaster of Paris probably, and maybe horse glue or something like that, bone glue. I don't know. As I say, I wouldn't like to chop up a painting of Monet's to find out. Let's get these first coats on totally over here so that I can work it down. Now remember, if we're going to frame it, we also have to leave a smooth border around the edge because the frame won't go up flush otherwise. So I'm going to have to come back in a minute with my fingers and just run around this to remove the edge. Si voulez-vous un cadre de le tableau, est nécessaire de remove the material de l'extérieur ici pour le cadre. You have to move the smooth the plaster, le plâtre là, pour le cadre après le fini de le tableau, the frame at the finish of the painting. So you see rapidly, quite awkward to do a big painting like this. I would want to probably do it in the studio. It's a challenge to do it outside. Here I'm not too far from the house, so it's not too bad. I really want to get all of this on because it's going to dry fairly quickly in these conditions. Les conditions sont secs. C'est petit chaud aujourd'hui. Le soleil est parti maintenant. Le derrière du nuage. Mais la lumière est bonne avant. J'espère les nuages partir. I hope the clouds go because it's going to spoil the light for me, but I will do what I can to show you the technique, although the colours will be very difficult to emulate and to play with and to vibrate with. So I could be doing this with paint directly. I could add heavier filler and bodies to an acrylic and I could build it up that way, or I can save a few bob and have fun doing the sculpture first. So you've got to sort of consider where the colours are going to go. Right, that's got my first coat. J'ai mon première couche matinaux, le plâtre et le colle. Maintenant, je continue avec the texture des fleurs. Now I continue with the textures of the leaves and the flowers. Leaves here. And then those things come behind here, the flowers behind there, the little... Now the texturing I mentioned with the fork, dip it in the water so it doesn't drag, and we can start to make some of these lovely textures amongst the grasses and things behind here. Do that with a point, or you can do it with this, and the way that the textures come through down here as well. And flowers going on down here. I've got to prime this as well, so if I don't know where my things are, I'm going to start losing. Okay, that's that one. Then we've got these lovely ones. Maybe that will do. So it gives you an idea. Now I want that to dry off, so I'm going to go wash my pan out. Let's look more closely at that texture now, and you can see how I've been building up the leaves and the flowers here. Now I could start to take brushes, and I'm going to take a filbert in this case, and I can start while it's still damp to actually work some of the lines into it. Now when I looked at Monet's, I noticed that his appeared to have, when they were done like this, a yellow ochre textural, a yellow ochre base. So I'm going to use yellow ochre today. À l'automne, je voudrais le tableau de Monet à l'exposition en Londres. Je vois les premières couches, c'est ocre jaune. C'est juste sec matinaux, it is just dry now. Make sure you get right into these recesses. You don't want to fill all the textures up, so make sure you brush out the texturing really well. Après c'est sec, je peinture avec acrylique. À la fini, je voudrais avec l'huile. C'est possible l'huile dans l'acrylique, c'est pas possible acrylique en huile. C'est interdit. It's not allowed to put the acrylic on the oil, but it is allowed to put the oil on the acrylic. Right, that's done. Let that dry. Okay, I'm going to open my paints up now and pick up some filberts. Start to work into this. I want my dark colours first, working through to my lightest. Having said that, I would like to get on some of these very light flower colours because I know that they're going to sink a bit. And I'm going to go down to my darker greens amongst this. So I'm going to really slab on some oils later, but it's just to establish where. Now, having got that, we're talking about working up the darks. I often just have a complete dark ground. You can see where the yellow ochre hasn't gone in as well there, so while I'm at it I'm just going to take a bit of yellow ochre and just go into those and touch them up a bit so that they're not showing, putting me off as I'm going. Right, this lovely dark background, let's take some beautiful deep Prussian blue and some sap green and come in behind this, just letting it glow. Darks first then, and I want to go even darker than that, so I'm going to take some black and a wee bit of purple even and some brown, some red into that, and really start to work up this very dark background, purple dark background of the tree. The sun's gone completely at the moment. I don't think it's going to come back or not. The clouds doing. These greens right back there. Take some green now and actually. So whether he actually worked in this way, I wouldn't really know without x-raying or taking apart one of the paintings, but let's assume he did. What fun, like in a moment. It's going to sink, the acrylic's going to sink, and like the oil will stay a lot more. Let's get these dark greens back here, and I can put the lighter colours over the top later. You can see how it's starting to work now. Even now I'm starting to feel these textures on top. Using the different blues that I would use in painting anyway, back here in the background trees. I'm starting now on some cerulean into these trees here. I want to play these colours against the purples and the and you know, would you know that this was done with texture first and not the brush or the paint? I don't know as you would. You experts might, but I'm not so sure. It's really golden yellows that are going on the tops of these leaves here. So I'm putting it over the textures, but I'm also at the same time making brush marks. It needs to dry off a bit more before I put more on there, because it's going to get muddy otherwise, and we don't want muddy colours, we want nice bright colours going over the top. So for the minute I'm just going to slap on some more colour where the flowers are, just to delineate where those colours are and look at the difference that makes. It's just raw umber, nothing exciting, just to bring out the warmth behind here against these other colours, and down here too we're going to have some of that coming into play against the blues back here. So that's drying off fairly quickly. I need to put some lights into the background. I want to get a bit of sky going on, so I'm going to take some yellow ochre and white and see what that does. And just try to get a bit of the sky happening back here, texturing in behind. Let me take some of that out again actually, we'll see. Let's just get colours working for me and we'll see how we go. Right, well let that dry off and I'll go and get my oils set up so I can show you how oils will go across to hopefully bring this really vibrantly to life. It's all sunk anyway with the acrylic and it will certainly come out with varnish. So that's it for the acrylics on the texture for the moment. If you go back to over here you can see the effects we're getting. Unfortunately the sun has disappeared completely now, really did need it at this stage, but here's my set of oils set out, at least all the oils I'm going to need for this. So we'll come back up to the painting now and see if we can lather on some colour on top and just show you how much stronger and clearer they can be. Right, we're going to go on with the oils then. Say the sunlight's gone, which is a real devil because I really love to have picked up on these beautiful colours now with the light coming across. But you can see now, look, here's the oils. I'm going to slab them over the acrylics, and then we can do that. We can put oils over acrylics. We cannot put acrylics over oils, so you're going to get a mess. That's not going to, it's going to peel off later. And I can use it really thickly, and I can even lather up over the texturing itself. I mean, I can actually move around and build up the texturing that I was doing earlier from here. I'm going to hit the more cooler reds yet as well to get that red coming into these a bit here. Red poppies a bit because it's going to link it, it's going to give that reflection from the sky that's coming in here. Single strokes, don't mess the colours up, just decide where your colour's going to go and then put it in. Coming back in with the greens now to work a bit of these up. Lovely, cool, acidic greens to capture the reflections of light. We'll do that back in here as well. And the whole thing starts to come to life, eh? And those warms will hopefully show against the cool threads that I put on. But I haven't got the bright sunlight coming on the poppies as I would have liked with the oranges. Nonetheless, hopefully you're finding it fun and you can see, as you can see the potential. Play one colour against another until we actually pick up the colour and put it next to another. You can't always tell what's missing. Is it working? Well, let me just... Right, let's look at these blues again, because the blues can bring out those lovely yellows, and I need to just look at what I do and don't have here. The way of those colours happening, just to bring out the yellows again. Are we there? Got to be pretty close to it. Burnt umber at the moment to just try and get a bit more of these darks. If I'm not careful, I'll end up with mud, and I don't want that. I've lost all the yellow ochre behind because I wanted to get those darks in, but I think it's working. We'd leave it at that because we've got the texture we were after. Just maybe touch the green a little bit more here and there on the tree, just to bring out. Yep, we'll leave it at that. So you can take it or leave it as you wish. I've got some oil paints left I should do something with sometime. I probably won't, because I don't use oils that much. Well, there you are then, having fun with texture and acrylics and oils. You might not like it might seem a mess to you, but it just shows you how that can be built up. And if we were to make more broken colour, or if we have a darker colour behind to start with and just put the lights over the top, it can be very effective. Let me show you a few examples now from the past of both textural work with resins and with oils and with all sorts. And then you'll get the idea of just how versatile it can be. Well, that'll have to dry off for a good few days now.